All right, everybody, welcome to the Tailgate Kings. We are here with a very special edition and a very special episode, a very special interview. We are here with none other than the general manager of Pro Wrestling 225, our good friend, Brett Landry. Brett, thanks for stopping in, bro.
Well, thank you, Casey. I appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, first time ever that I think we've ever had you on any iteration of our show.
Yeah, actually, I do.
So,
I think this is the first time.
long time coming, um, and no better time than the present. So we're gonna get you on here just to talk about the current state of Pro Wrestling 225, like the championship landscape.
hmm
Then the next event you guys have coming up, that's a Power Up in Houma,
That's
correct?
right. That is
Yeah,
right.
so we're gonna
Power up,
talk a
Houma.
little bit about that. Um, some chippiness that's been going on with you as the as the man in charge, the GM.
Yeah,
Comes with a lot of responsibilities, and that typically comes with a lot of hot heads as well.
especially in wrestling. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah. Anyways, Brett, you've been a friend of the program in any iteration I've done of it for the last 8 years, I think. So
Long
going
time.
on a decade almost. So look, dude, you've been really supportive of me and all of my journeys I've taken, so I really appreciate it. Um but let's talk about you. Let's talk about just a little bit about your background for somebody who doesn't know about you. And like how you really got to love pro wrestling and involved in pro wrestling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think like most everybody, I loved pro wrestling when I was a kid, sort of captured by the magic of it growing up. And I didn't really know if I wanted to be a wrestler. I just knew that I was fascinated by wrestling, and it just kind of took me on this journey like nothing else did. I'd watch sports growing up and all different kinds of shows, and I don't know, just something about wrestling had this magic that just wouldn't let me go. So I knew as I got older, I wanted to be involved somehow. I didn't know how, but I knew I wanted to find some way to get involved. And then in about 2010, I started kind of snooping around the independent scene in my area, just trying to figure out what was up there, what was going on. There wasn't really a whole lot going on at the time, but I was able to find a couple of places nearby and start to get more information. But I couldn't really do anything still because I was a 19-year-old kid at the time, just like, how do I do this? So there really wasn't a lot of opportunity. But about a year or so later, in the summer of 2011, a wrestling school opened up in New Orleans, and I got the opportunity to start there. And it put me on the path that I am on today. I was there for a year. It was a training course. I graduated that course in 2012, and from there, I mean, it's 2025 now, so that's almost 13 years out of training, 14 years from getting in the business. If you really wanted to, you could round it up to 15 years of me exploring for the first time.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, well over a decade of my life has been spent now in the wrestling industry. I've gotten to meet and learn from a number of wonderful people, and I've done a little bit of everything. I have been a ring announcer, I've been a commentator, I've done interviews, I've been a manager at ringside, and nowadays a general manager or commissioner, as they call it some places. In front of the curtain, behind the curtain, done production, creative. I mean, it's things that I didn't expect to do that just kind of fell in place that you sort of learn by osmosis, the
Mhm.
experience around you. And then you find the things that interest you and you pursue those paths. And yeah, it's led me where I am now. I'm very, very grateful for the companies that I work with and the opportunities that they give me from a personally creative standpoint. I mean, I think professional wrestling is the greatest performance art in the world. And the fact that I'm able to contribute to it in some meaningful way is means a lot to me, both personally and professionally.
Yeah, and you've done a great job over your career of not only across the country but specifically and most influentially across the Gulf Coast. You've made your way across that Gulf Coast and really made a name for yourself and with another group that you were a part of in the past. You guys made the roads a lot, just from on the outside perspective of me seeing.
Yep.
So um I look at the work you've done with companies in the past, like Elevate and Elite, and companies, Pro Wrestling 225 movement, companies like that all over the state. And you've really made your mark, and specifically you talk about making your mark now as the general manager of Pro Wrestling 225. Now, we kind of alluded to some of that chippiness that goes into being kind of one of the guys in charge of a lot of guys that might want to also be in charge. You know what I'm saying? So,
Oh yeah.
um, so recently, let's talk about it right at the top. Recently, you had a run-in with Hunter Law, who is the movement champion currently,
Yeah.
um, and based on the altercation, it led to his suspension.
Yeah.
So maybe tell us a little bit about that, and also maybe some clarity going forward on his next title defense that he's got coming up for that movement championship.
Yeah. I'm going to start off by saying something that might be surprising. I have a lot of respect for Hunter Law. I think Hunter Law is an incredible talent. Hunter Law was trained by former TNA superstar and current Ring of Honor and AEW superstar Jay Lethal. He has a wealth of talent. Unfortunately, Hunter Law is also psychotically arrogant, and he hangs around with the wrong people, like Big Ramp and Big Ramp Enterprises. He's got a lot of negative influence around him, but it helps feed his ego, which creates the attitude that he has. But again, that attitude aside, there is still talent there. Hunter Law won the Movement Championship 3 years ago. Pro Wrestling Movement, that company started almost 4 years ago, but has only run about 6, maybe 7 events. So it's not very oft running, which is part of the reason why Pro Wrestling 225 acquired it last year. But when that title was introduced, when that championship was created, Hunter Law won it, and no one has beaten him for it. And that says a lot. Now, he has kind of averted some title defenses recently, which I had some words to say about publicly. And, yes, I am the general manager and I am the one that books the matches, but it's not a one-way street. It's not me putting the hammer down and saying, well, you got to do this. There's negotiations, and I have to make sure that their schedules are available for that day, and they have to be at the building. They have to show up. There's contracts involved. It's a lot of nuanced stuff, but Hunter Law likes to make excuses. And he lets his arrogance get the best of him. And he said that if Jace Miles eliminated him in our Super Gold Rumble, that he would give him a title shot. Well, that's exactly what happened. And he tried to come to me and make excuses. And I told him no. I said he made his bed. He's going to lie in it. Jace eliminated him. You made a promise to Jace. Well, it's going to happen. I'm going to make it official. You're going to defend that title against Jace. Now, that was going to be at Power Up on March 8th in Houma, but Hunter Law made the choice to not only get in my face, but put his hands on me, put me up against a wall. I don't stand for that. Yes, I'm the general manager, but I'm not just an office guy. I have been a manager at Ringside, a talent agent for years, and I have worked with some of the baddest of the bad. I have worked with NWA's Odinson. I have worked with MLW's. They were a tag team in MLW together. Brian Brock, and Michael Patrick, the Dirty Blondes. I've worked with a lot of real bad dudes. So I've had my fair share of interactions with other real bad dudes, and you don't get to intimidate me like that and just think you're going to get away with it. So I took his paycheck and I suspended him for a couple shows. And when that suspension is up, his very next match at Pro Wrestling 225 will be for the Movement Championship, and he will defend against Jace Miles. He's going to get exactly what he asked for.
So this suspension is for an indefinite amount of time currently, as we speak.
Yes, I have not told him how long yet, although I do have an idea for how long. I just want to make it I want to make it hurt where it hurts most. And I know that Hunter Law, I mean, everybody likes money, right? But I know that that's kind of feeds into his arrogance, the rock star lifestyle. That's how he likes to lavish himself. So I'd like to put a dent in that for a little bit.
Hmm. Make him dip into the savings a little bit,
Just a
maybe.
little bit. Just
Just
a
a little
little
bit.
bit. It's
Understood.
I think it's a just punishment.
Understood. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit to someone that you're really close with and have had a long history in this business with. Let's talk about Christian Blake winning at
Yeah.
Super Gold 9. I can't believe that you guys are going to make 10 years of Super Gold next year.
Yeah.
That is I was there for, man, I think I was on commentary for, I think Super Gold 4 or 3. One of those. I was on commentary for one of those. So, looking back now on the fact that you guys will be at Super Gold 10 next year is mind blowing to me. But also mind blowing is Christian Blake becoming the first ever 2-time winner of the Super Gold Rumble.
That's true.
So, talk to us a little bit about what maybe that means for Christian Blake and his future going forward for Pro Wrestling 225.
Well, I think complicated is an understatement when it comes to Christian and I's relationship. Um, I mentioned earlier some of those bad dudes that I used to hang around with. Um, a lot of them were sent at Christian to try and take Christian's championship away, and at the time, although I hate to admit it, his livelihood away. Um, if you can't beat him, join him, right? I wound up not being able to defeat the game changer Christian Blake with all of my army of soldiers. And in 2018, I kind of laid the gauntlet down and I said, why don't we shift gears ourselves and make this happen together? And it took some convincing, but I dropped all of my clients and I took Christian Blake on as my only client and we started working together. And that's where the Overboys came to be. Christian's very good friend and cousin, actually, by the way, cousin by marriage, Jordan Ja,
Hmm.
returned to wrestling after a number of years.
Yeah.
And he returned to wrestling as my second client, and the Overboys became a tag team, at which point their careers really started to ramp up in Pro Wrestling 225. And they were my boys, man. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of championship wins, um, a forced breakup. But we ended up getting back together after we were lucky enough to oust the former general manager, Michael White.
Hmm.
But that kind of brings us to today. I was offered the position of general manager last year, but it came with the condition of having to no longer manage Christian and no longer manage Jordan because of the conflict of interest that was there. And it was an extremely difficult decision. But I talked to them about it and I took the job. Well, clearly I took the job. And I've still supported my boys from afar, but it's hard to see someone that I care about, that I consider a brother, become self-destructive. Uh, Christian has been obsessed with regaining the Pro Wrestling 225 Heavyweight Championship, which I totally understand. It's the heavyweight championship of your home promotion. I totally get it. Everybody wants it, right? But I mentioned Michael White earlier. The fans voted for him to return as a wrestler on our roster, and he had a match with Christian one-on-one, and he chloroformed him. At least what we think is chloroform. We haven't gotten the fluid tested, but I don't think it really matters. It was something
Yeah.
that was a chemical, and it was on a rag, and it knocked Christian out, and the EMTs tended to him in the back. He was coherent, but we medically disqualified him from competing in Super Gold Rumble. He was scheduled to come out as the final entrant by the luck of the draw anyway, but we told him he wasn't going. He came out regardless. I tried to stop him. Our referees tried to stop him. He got in the ring against my personal wishes, against my professional wishes, and against the orders of the medical staff that we had there that night. But by a miracle, by the grace of God, probably literally, he won. And he became the first ever two-time Super Gold winner. And now he seeks to regain the Pro Wrestling 225 Heavyweight Championship from, of all people, Vladimir Koloff. Um, I don't know what Christian's future is going to look like, but I will say that while I very deeply believe in him, I am also very deeply concerned about the path that he's on.
Yeah, and I mean, to cover a lot of what you said there, when you talk about the Overboys, and even you and your career, excluding your tenure so far as general manager, you guys as a duo and then a trio are 225 Hall of Famers one day. Like you guys are legends in that company, and when you look at one of the things that is going to make Christian Blake one of the biggest legends to ever come through Pro Wrestling 225, it was winning the Super Gold, winning that championship, and holding it for as long as he did. And now this is going to further cement his legacy. But I guess as a fan and as an outside perspective, I do have to agree with you a little bit. You question at what point is the drive worth the payoff,
Mm-hmm.
and what is on the other side of that. So yeah, I mean, obviously, huge ups to Christian Blake, and a huge congratulations to him for becoming the second and the first, only to do that. Um, but again, I just wonder what's on the other side of on the other side of that for Christian Blake, and I hope it's nothing but success for him. So,
Yeah, I agree. I don't want my bias to peek through, but
of
I do
course,
hope that he gets. I hope he gets that another title reign. Um, but I'm also a little concerned about what would happen if he doesn't.
yeah,
So
and the guy that he would have to go through, just as you mentioned, the current Pro Wrestling 225 heavyweight champion, has been for a while now. Vladimir Koloff. We interviewed him, maybe a little over, I think, over a year ago, and he was champion then. He's been champion for you guys for a long time now. Um, Tensions also arising with you and him as well, as we've seen recently on the 225 socials. So talk about his title reign a little bit and kind of what may be going on between you two.
yeah, it's all connected. Um, when Christian won Super Gold and he won the heavyweight championship, that year was incredible for him. And Koloff happened to return from Christian's past. I mentioned that the Overboys really started picking up together as a tag team in Pro Wrestling 225 when Christian Blake and Jordan Jah won the 225 tag team titles. Well, one of the teams that they went through was called the Pride, and it was a tag team consisting of Vladimir Koloff and his partner at the time, Charles West, and sort of a ghost of Christmas past, right? Vlad comes back and faces Christian this time in a singles environment, and Vlad defeated Christian for the heavyweight championship. And ever since then, Vlad has been the champion. So Christian is not only getting a title shot against Vlad, it's not just a title shot against Vlad. It is a redemption to try and win back the very championship that Vlad took from him in the first place. So I will say there's a lot of story there,
Yeah.
which sells tickets, but it's also a lot of story with Vlad and myself. He is being too friendly. He is being too supportive of Christian. This burgeoning sort of faction war thing that's been happening over the last few months with a lot of our talent in the locker room. Vlad he's not a part of any group, and technically neither is Christian, even though you consider the Overboys tag team still. But Vlad is I don't know what his motives are, but I don't trust him. Although it seems like Christian might, and that is also troubling to me. I think it just speaks more to Christian's headspace. Vlad is extremely dangerous, and he always has been. But It's gotten worse since he's been the champion. And mind you, Vladimir Koloff was also the Pro Wrestling 225 Southeastern champion at the exact same time he was heavyweight champion. He held the heavyweight title and the SEC title at the same time.
Yeah.
And he was a dual champion for quite some time and lost that title in a multi-man match where he was not involved in the decision. If Vlad had had his way, he'd probably still have both belts now. I mean, he is a monster. And again, credit where credit is due. The man is a machine. But he's also a snake.
Yeah, former tag champ, former SEC champ, former heavyweight champ. He's done it all in 225. And, you know, having done interviews with Vlad in the past and also having met him in person, not saying that you don't, but while I have a lot of respect for him, again, as an outsider looking in, you do kind of perk up your eyebrows a little bit and wonder what's going on there, and wonder what the motivations are for the motivation that he is giving Christian Blake. So while I again have my eyebrows perked, I would be lying if I said I wasn't intrigued to see where this goes.
He's a fun interview, though. You know,
he is a fun interview. He is a fun interview.
You know,
he was very adamant about the direction he was going. But the thing is, like you said, general manager, Mr. GM, is he's a monster. He talked it and he backed it up, and now he is where he is still all this time later. So yeah, very anxious to see his match, actually, that we'll be talking about a little later, but going up against this guy, the newly crowned Pro Wrestling 225 SEC champion, as of very recently, with some in the 225 fandom may say shenanigans.
Yeah.
I'll leave that up to the critics and the skeptics and the sheets, but tell us a little bit about Defiant Simon Phillips. We were talking about him a little bit before the pod, nothing crazy, but the career evolution that he's made in the last 5 to 6 years specifically. Talk a little bit about your new SEC champion.
Man, Simon Phillips. What a journey on that kid. So he breaks into the business. He is golden, Simon Phillips. He is draped in gold. And just like any young kid who looks good and moves fast, very arrogant, right? And that's a dime a dozen in pro wrestling. It just comes with the territory. I've seen it a million times, and I'll see it a million times more. So at the time, he was just another one of those guys. He was doing well. His matches were good, but again, he was just another one of those arrogant guys with shiny gear, right? Then one day, his brother, JTM, and a friend of theirs, Brandon Collins, form this group. They take all of their old wrestling gear and they throw it into this big pit. They set it on fire, and they decide to call themselves Disobey. They started in street clothes after that and eventually got their own gear, but they created this sort of this anarchist sort of group together. And it brought out a side of Simon that was I couldn't believe he had that in him.
Yeah.
It brought out this aggressiveness, this viciousness, this willingness to cause chaos and like wanton damage that I would not have expected out of someone that, again, just a year prior to that was wearing a gold cape. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
It was a very drastic 180. Disobey is no longer together, and that is Simon's fault. It's almost as if he took everything that he learned from being in that little trio of anarchy and blew it up so he could use it as his own pedestal to launch himself to the next level. And it's that kind of cunning that makes him as dangerous as he is now. He's said many times that he wants to be the youngest Pro Wrestling 225 heavyweight champion ever. and he got pretty close. He was in the final 5 of the Super Gold Rumble. He got very close to accomplishing not the goal of winning the title, but at least getting that match, that one-on-one, with such a big win there.
Yeah.
But same night, Super Gold, he had the opportunity to win the SEC championship. He faced Braxton Hunter. Braxton Hunter has been on a roll. His journey to the Southeastern title was a long one,
Yeah.
and I will never forget the reaction that the building had when he finally won that belt. I was so happy for him. Everybody in the locker room was happy for him. I mean, the roof came unglued.
Yeah.
Nobody, especially me, nobody thought that Braxton would lose that championship so early.
Yeah. When I saw the result, again, I wasn't at that show in person, but when I saw the result, I first of all was like so excited because Simon and Braxton are actually the two guys that I first befriended in this business, actually. That weren't like older figures that were trying to show me the ropes.
Yeah.
But Braxton and Simon both were at a show called Full Throttle Wrestling that used to run here in my local town.
Oh.
And I met them back in, I think, 2016, 2017, and they were like fresh. To say they were fresh is an understatement. So
Yeah.
not only was I excited to see these two guys that I had basically watched grow up in the business facing each other for a title, but I was double mind blown to see the title change so quickly. But yeah, I had to express to some people that may not know that these two guys have known each other and grown up in this business together. So outside of the title change, there's a lot of past history there as well that I
Yeah.
just loved about that match.
Yeah, I will also say that for anyone that hasn't seen it, it is an early contender for match of the year for us, which is
Yeah, man.
really difficult to say in February,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it is a very early contender for match of the year. If you're not able to make it to Pro Wrestling 225 events live, we do have Pro Wrestling 225 Unleashed. It is on local television in the Baton Rouge area, but if you don't live in the Baton Rouge area, we also post it 24 hours later on our YouTube channel. So you can check out our episodes of Unleashed commercial free on YouTube at 6 p.m. on Fridays.
Nice.
Hey, we love commercial
We
free.
do. We love commercial free.
It's great. No ads,
we keep telling
baby.
WWE
No
that they need
ads.
to fix the Raw that's on Netflix. Put the commercials in the right spot. I swear to God, it's like they cut away. Liv Morgan's on her
You
ass,
just gotta-
and then they come back and
You
Liv
just gotta
Morgan's
start 30
whacking the
minutes
shit out of
late.
somebody. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah,
We missed the whole.
You just
Yeah.
gotta start 30 minutes late, and then you boom.
and
I
just
think
fast forward. Yep.
I think they should just do like a 5-minute countdown, start at 7:05, and in that 5-minute lead up, just play all your ads there. Just give me all the ads up front. I'll do that. I'll take 5 minutes of ads.
Just
It's-
let
it's
Pat
my- it's my
McAfee give
warm-up.
all the ads the whole time. People will be more entertained by Pat McAfee telling them to do whatever.
You're right.
Anyway,
But sorry, we have segued away. So Simon, if you see this, no disrespect was intended at all, Mr. SEC champion. But yeah, I mean the praise that we're giving Simon is warranted. I mean, like you said, you see the evolution that he's made in the business, and then just the immediate leap to 225. I would say he's again, like you said, the borderline of that main event scene. He's right there, and that jump away from Golden to where he is now has really catapulted him there to where he's right there, dude. And his time is coming up. He's so young still.
Yeah, he's got a lot of runway ahead of him. But
Yeah.
again, he's one of those guys that I worry that bad influence might veer him off the path. But still, his talent is undeniable.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about undeniable talent, and man, one area of Pro Wrestling 225 that I don't think gets enough credit, at least in the circles that I've talked to Pro Wrestling 225 fandom about. And I remember talking to Jordy about this quite a few years ago. I was like, man, I would love to see you guys have a great women's roster and a women's scene in Pro Wrestling 225. And not only have you guys done that, you have excelled really. You have multiple two-time champions in your Pro Wrestling 225 women's locker room. And not only that, but you have kept consistently that same talent of the women's champions repeatedly through the doors of Pro Wrestling 225. You guys have really established some really talented women in that locker room. And when you talk about talented women in the locker room, you can't exclude the current Pro Wrestling 225 women's champion, T Gaines, two-time women's champion, might I add. Like I said, a few two-time champions in there. So a part of Pillar now, along with Braxton Hunter, who we were just talking about. We'll talk a little more about him in a little bit. But tell us about T Gaines and about that I consider stacked women's division.
Yeah, so especially in the Gulf Coast scene, it's so difficult to have a really solid roster of female competitors.
Agreed.
For some reason, it just seems like the well was so dry down here for so long with women who wanted to compete in the ring. And we recognize that as a pain point. Something that we're really proud of at Pro Wrestling 225 is the buffet, right? The Baskin Robbins of it all. We want to be able to offer a little bit of everything, of every genre, of every angle of pro wrestling to our audience. And just a place that we were lacking and we recognized was women's wrestling. And it wasn't just us, it was kind of everywhere around here. So it's like, you know what? Let's pioneer this. Let's scrounge around anywhere we can, states, north, south, east, west, find everybody that we can, and we will pull together the most excellent women's division that we can and put them on a pedestal with the spotlight that they deserve. And we were very, very lucky to do that. Our very first women's champion was Dream Girl Ellie, who's been making waves across the country. And now T Gaines. T Gaines is so impressive. Her nickname, if nobody knows this, is Quadzilla.
Yeah.
And she lived up to her nickname as an entrant in the Super Gold Rumble, which, yes, by the way, Pro Wrestling 225 Super Gold Rumble is intergender. She came out as an entrant in Super Gold, and she Samoan dropped a 375-pound man in the middle of the ring.
Jesus.
I thought the ring was going to collapse with the sound that this man made when he hit the middle after this woman lifted him up with just all the power in her legs and dropped him on his back. That was the most insane thing that I have ever seen. But that goes to show how dangerous she is in the ring with the other female competitors that she's facing off with. She has been in this back and forth tug of war with Brooklyn Barrett over the last few months, and they have traded the women's title back and forth over these few months. And as a matter of fact, T Gaines' current reign as the women's champion was by defeating Brooklyn Barrett in the very first ever all-women's steel cage match in the history of Louisiana professional wrestling.
Wow.
No independent professional wrestling company in the state of Louisiana had ever run a steel cage match with only female competitors. And we were the first ones to do it at Pro Wrestling 225, and T Gaines was the first one to win it. So tremendous accolades on her resume. Couldn't be prouder of what she's doing. And her just enamoring love story with Braxton Hunter, being able to join the Pillar and add that extra pillar to the pillar of that female representation, along with the other young great athletes alongside Braxton Hunter like Jay Smiles and Alex Braddock. It's a fantastic group, and seeing where she has come and what she adds to that group is fantastic. I love having T Gaines on the roster.
Yeah, a lot of championship gold running through that faction as of late. Now some of it has made its way out of the faction as of late, but still hard to deny the fact that regardless of that all, championship gold is making its way through the Pillar in 225. And who knows when it'll be back. Now we will talk about the match that this will be happening with later, but one of the titles that has made its way through the Pillar and has come and gone was the Pro Wrestling 225 Tag Team Championship. Now, there was some history there with, with one member of the Pillar leaving in the past, but we could talk about that a little more later, maybe. But currently, as we speak, it is the Russell Twins as the Pro Wrestling 225 Tag Team Champions. Now,
Mhm.
I have not seen these guys live yet, but I've seen tape, I've seen
Yeah.
clips, I've seen some matches. I don't know how you guys find talent like this, man, but these guys are ridiculous. It's so much fun to watch. So much fun to watch.
Yeah, they. Well, first you have Elijah Burke to thank for that. The Pope. He is their trainer, their mentor,
Okay.
and the Russell Twins are one of the most entertaining acts. And I don't mean just tag teams. I mean singles wrestlers, male, female, doesn't matter. They're one of the most entertaining acts that I have seen in years.
Yeah.
They are so fun. Uh, and they were on hand that fateful night. We were talking about the Pillar. The representing the Pillar, Alex Braddock and Dale Springs were the Pro Wrestling 225 Tag Team Champions. Dale Springs unfortunately had to retire, and he abdicated his half of the Pro Wrestling 225 Tag Team titles. Now, Alex Braddock could have chosen Braxton Hunter. He could have chosen Jace Miles. He even could have chosen T Gaines if he wanted to, but he just wasn't quite able to decide who he wanted to share the tag team titles with. Became a little bit of a point of contention in the Pillar. Left it to me to decide, well, what are we going to do with the tag titles? Do I let Alex choose a partner? Do I strip them of the titles? What are we going to do? Where is this going to go?
Yeah.
And it came to a boiling point one night where all of these factions, like I said, have been forming, and they were all getting to an argument that was going to become very violent. And I thought, you know what? If we're going to have all these guys out here and they're going to argue and fight anyway, let's do it in the ring and let's put the tag titles on the line. So I had essentially an open invitational tag team battle royal where just everybody go at it, punch each other in the face, get it all out of your system, and
Yep.
throw somebody out of the ring. And then whoever's left standing, I don't care if it's two people or if it's one person, if it's you alone and your partner got eliminated, that's fine. You'll still win. I don't care. Get it all out of your system, punch and kick and throw. And then at the very end of that, the Russell Twins won. One of the twins was left standing, and there we have it, the new Pro Wrestling 225 Tag Team Champions. And they have brought those belts around and defended them. I believe they take regular bookings down in the Caribbean, which is incredible. They've defended the titles down there. Wow. There's a charity professional wrestling organization that the Pope runs. I think they've defended the titles there as well. They might actually be the tag team champions there too. I mean, they've got tag team titles from all over the universe. Those guys are just they're gold collectors right now, and I love that for them. They are so kind, and they are so attentive. They bring so much joy and positivity to every locker room that they're in. The promos that they do are fantastic. The segments that they film are so entertaining. And then they back that up. They come to the ring. They have custom entrance music. They come to the ring. Their gear looks fantastic. And then they show out in the most insane way. I mean, they are just incredible athletes.
Yeah.
And again, we like to hang our hat on that. That is, we are really proud to have them as tag team champions, and we're really proud to have them in our ring. And I know they're very busy guys, so we don't get to have them on the show very often, but rightfully so. They're getting the notoriety and the attention that they deserve, and I hope there's bigger and better things for them to come.
Yeah, high demand.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I can't advocate for them enough, especially based on what you just said. But again, if you haven't seen any of their matches, go to the Pro Wrestling 225 YouTube channel and just go watch a lot of their matches there. Not just them, but a lot of the other people in the locker room. There's just so much talent flowing through that locker room, man. And it's just, it's tough because you step away for a while and who knows, there could be 3 or 4 people that have established themselves with the audience and in that locker room in your absence, and now all of a sudden it's even more stacked. Just over the last 7-8 years that I've been watching 225, it's just, you think there's more talent. Like, you look at a guy like Mustang Mike 7-8 years ago, nobody could fathom maybe a world of 225 without Mustang Mike in it. And now, as those years maybe dying down, look at all the talent that's here. We've got 10, 15, 20 people that could come to that locker room and just be huge and
Yeah.
stars out there. So, yeah, hang your hat, because you guys have a lot of great talent that run through there. And let's talk about
Thank
where
you.
we're going to see a lot of that great talent. We're going to see them come at Power Up in Houma,
Yeah.
Louisiana. It's coming up on March 8th. It's going to be at the East Park Rec Center.
Hmm.
I've been there. Quite a few events have come through there. So, man, I'm jealous that I won't be in the building, because it looks like such a great show. You guys have some fantastic matches
Thank
on
you.
there. And let's talk about one of them right now, and let's talk about a guy that has been through 225, through a lot of the ebbs and flows of the business, and that's Lucha Lacora. The
Yeah.
Deadly Sin Lucha Lacora just had a great match against Fuego del Sol recently,
Hmm.
who I was so sad I wasn't there for, because that was one of the guys I've been advocating for you guys to get a match for, but I still really enjoyed watching their match. Great, great, great.
Hmm.
He's going to be going up against the Sultan of the Sky, Orion.
Yes.
So, man, that match is going to be excellent, I think.
Yeah.
Man, you guys are just putting on such great stuff. But yeah, tell us a little
Thank
bit
you.
about that, man, because it's gonna burn the house down.
Yeah. Well, make no mistake, Lacora is a psychopath.
Yeah, he is. He is.
If that
He's
is
crazy.
not, yes, if that is not clearly evident, he has some pretty severe psychological issues. He is crazy,
Yeah.
and not crazy in the good way. He is crazy. But for some reason, that warped brain translates into incredible lucha libre.
Yeah.
And he and Fuego del Sol had some run-ins over the years, and they'd wrestled each other on the Gulf Coast plenty of times. This was their first match against one another in many years, and they did famously.
Yeah.
Then we have Orion. I mean, I can't think of enough nice things to say about Orion. I mean, this man, he has been having a generational run with OVW. His stuff in Ohio Valley Wrestling recently has been great.
Yeah.
He trains, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I also think he might help train others at Aleister Black's school
Oh.
with
Oh,
the
okay.
House of Black. I know he is there pretty often as well.
Nice.
Um, and his work ethic is incredible.
Yeah.
His drive. This man, I see him booked on shows. I feel like sometimes he's in California and New York on the same day. I don't know
Yeah. Right. Right.
how he does it. I really don't. We're very lucky to get him for this match in Homa of all places. You know, Pro Wrestling 225. Obviously, the 225 is the Baton Rouge area code, which is where Pro Wrestling 225 was born. But we've started to run shows outside of that zip code, and Homa is one of those storied wrestling cities. It may not sound like it, but this building, East Park Rec Center, Mid South used to run here. I
Yeah.
mean, every legend that you can think of that made their name in Mid South wrestling, Jim Cornette, Junkyard Dog, Magnum TA, Tully Blanchard,
Man.
and anybody that you can think of that had been in Mid South, they've passed through that building. I mean, there were riots in that building during the times of Mid South,
Yeah.
and we don't want that wrestling history to dissipate. So if we're going to run a city like Homa, we're going to run that building that has so much rich pro wrestling history from decades past. We want to add our name to that list. And we want to add the kind of wrestling that we produce to that list and those matches. And this match between Lacora and Orion is going to be a lucha libre spectacle that, let's be honest, most wrestling fans in the area don't get to see very often. And then when
No.
they do see it, it is a form of athleticism that they haven't seen
Yeah.
out of the wrestling that we normally provide. So I think it's a special treat. I think Orion is a generational talent. I think Locura may actually be a real life demon, and to have them square up against one another is, I would say, a dream match. But it's you're gonna have to see it for yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And not only to talk about how amazing and awesome it is just to watch lucha libre, but to not or to take into account the risk of it all and the danger of it
Yeah.
all. Like I'm pretty sure you were there when it happened, but there was a show for GCW, um quite a few years back, probably like 6 years ago or so, and I think it was like Oski Palomino,
Yes, his
and
leg.
yeah,
Yeah.
right over the
Mhm.
top rope, landed, snapped.
Yep.
And I remember, I think Jordy was the ref for that match actually, and
Maybe.
maybe not, maybe not. I might be wrong, but I remember because I was in the crowd that night, and I remember when they threw up the X. I could see the panic because that's why I feel like it was Jordy, because I feel like I was looking in his eyes and I was like, oh no, I feel like something's actually wrong. And
Yeah.
yeah, you had to get stretchered out and everything like that, and it was such a shame because I think he had flown in from Mexico or something like that. Like he was from a pretty far ways away, and
Yeah.
to come there and to break his leg like that, all of that to say, it goes to show you not only how amazing and athletic they are, but how death-defying it is. Because we've seen plenty of incidents of lucha libre result in um, really bad incidents, but also there have been fatal accidents that's
Yeah.
happened. So, yeah, I mean, shout out to both of these. I've seen Orion getting more and more exposure in the Gulf Coast. I've seen
Mhm.
a few other companies, bringing him in. So, again, I'll be watching that after the fact because I can't wait for that match. Um,
Yeah.
it's gonna be great. Again, Lacora probably clinically needs to be looked at, but
Yep.
it's just a
You
great
know,
wrestler.
that's wrestling. Yeah, it's
Great
wrestling,
wrestler,
right?
great wrestler. Let's talk about two other great wrestlers. One guy that I was exposed to a long time ago, when he was a little different, but he was still making his way in the Gulf Coast. But the Gutter Snake, Izzy James,
Mm.
going one-on-one with the exclamation point Steve Anthony. Steve Anthony,
Mhm.
funny enough, a guy who is a Louisiana legend that somehow I have never seen wrestle once live. When I was
Oh.
when I was really involved in pro wrestling back in the day, as to the extent that I was, he was not active, so I didn't get to see Steve Anthony. So this again, two guys that have really made their names throughout the Gulf Coast and in Louisiana specifically. This should be a fantastic match.
Yeah, Steve Anthony. He broke my leg 10 years ago in that same building in Houma. Um,
Wow,
yeah, we don't have to talk about that. I wasn't the best guy back then, but that's okay. I probably deserved it. Um,
time goes on.
time goes on. Time goes on. But yes, Steve Anthony is one of those guys who has been not just in this area forever, but I mean, gosh, his a 25 year career
Yeah,
where he has been all over the world. We're
yeah,
talking about a former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion. We're talking about a former New Japan Pro Wrestling star.
yeah,
I mean, he's done it all, man. He is so good. And then we talk about the Gutter Snake, Izzy James, who was actually just recently on an episode of AW Collision against
yep,
Dustin Rhodes. Um, Many years ago, he called himself the Unholy One. And I've had my run-ins with him too. He was a very sick individual. Seems like that is different now, though. I haven't seen him in a number of years, but he seems to have a different motivation. I don't quite know what it is, but from what it seems like to me on the outside looking in, there was this series of matches that we've had recently between Steve Anthony and Vordell Walker,
hmm
another incredible talent that has not only been here for ages, but also has had a 20 to 25-year career, former Ring of Honor superstar. And I think he was waiting to see who came out on top of that altercation.
hmm.
Because whoever it was, I feel like Izzy was going to target. And it was Steve Anthony, and he left him a snake in a box in the locker room. Um,
I remember that now, actually. Yeah.
yeah, peculiar.
hmm
But it seems that regardless of the name and the look and the haircut, his mind games haven't changed. So I'm really curious to see this new iteration of Izzy James. I wonder what it's going to be like. But that question mark aside, athletically, he's only gotten
hmm
better over the years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like a fine wine, so has Steve Anthony. So to have Anthony and James together in the same ring, especially in Houma, which by the way is Steve Anthony's hometown, he grew up there. That is going to be a very exciting match. But also probably the most unpredictable one, I think, on our entire card.
Yeah, I think I could agree with you there. And I can't speak to it enough. Nearly 40 years of combined experience between these two in that
Yeah.
ring. And that's like you said, world traveled champions all over the place. Um, Unpredictable and going to be really fun.
Mhm.
And also, shout out to Vordell Walker, one of the legends of this area that I have seen live multiple times. He actually won the Rumble, the Super Gold Rumble that I did a commentary for. I
Yeah,
think that's when he challenged Gil Gracie for the title.
that is
And
true.
man, their rivalry, man, don't get me started. We could talk back on that forever. but yeah, yeah, Vordell Walker, man, a legend in these parts. But Steve Anthony and Izzy James gonna be, again. I hate to use the term barn burners so much, but like you guys just have so many good matches lined
Well,
up.
thank you.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
do our best.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a battle of two former champions. Two people that we've already mentioned here. We've got the Dream Girl Ellie going up against the Dark Prodigy, Brooklyn Barrett. Now you've got the inaugural champion against a former two-time champion.
Mm.
Um, some history here between with both of them in the company, and again, seems like it's going to be another fun match. What should we expect from these two ladies?
Yeah, it's a first time matchup for both of them. They've never faced each other before. And yeah, like you alluded to, this is the original, the inaugural Pro Wrestling 225 Women's Champion against not only the most recent former Women's Champion, but also the first ever two-time Women's Champion and youngest, not only Women's Champion, but youngest champion, period, in Pro Wrestling 225 history. Brooklyn Barrett is 19 years old. And
Whoa, I honestly did not know she was so young.
yes, and
Wow.
we talked about Simon Phillips' runway. This young lady has a runway 100 miles long. To be where she is at right now, so early in her career, this is, I believe, 2025 is entering her second full year in the business.
The runway, she's just getting on the plane.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
runway.
It hasn't
Yeah.
even taxied yet, and
Yeah.
she is already a
Man.
two-time champion and the first ever two-time champion that we've had. So this is a true, and again, very impressive accolades.
Mhm.
But going up against Dream Girl Ellie, who is our first women's champion, this is a test of her mettle. This is going to be Brooklyn Barrett's biggest test that she has had against a veteran women's talent. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm hard pressed to say or to give any kind of prediction for this one because you would like to think that someone that is so well traveled as Ellie, that has had as many matches as her, would go up against someone like Brooklyn Barrett. Is like, oh well, she's younger, she's a rookie, maybe it'll be an easy win. I don't think so.
Mm.
And that's not just to say of Brooklyn's accomplishments and the skills that she has, but also the people that she hangs around. We were literally just talking a moment ago about Lacora. Lacora is Brooklyn's mentor. She is the reason that Brooklyn even exists in the wrestling business. So whatever darkness has infiltrated Lacora's brain, whatever symbiote is crawling around up there, has certainly infected Brooklyn as well. So that influence speaks a lot. And this is also sort of a second part to that match, right? Because Lacora is facing Orion, and who are the partners in the international superstars? Well, it's Orion and Ellie. So you
Wow.
have this mirrored match here between Lacora and Orion, and then Orion's intergender tag partner, Ellie, and Lacora's mentee in Brooklyn
Wow.
Barrett. So there's a lot of parallels that are very
Mhm.
interesting here. And that's, that adds another layer to the complexity. I don't know if Ellie's veteran instincts are going to be able to combat the twistedness, the way that Brooklyn wrestles and what she's willing to do. I don't know if Ellie would be able to go that far. So that is interesting. It is an interesting dichotomy between the two. This is probably, I know, it's unpredictable, but I think it also has the potential to be that sleeper on the show, where you don't quite know what to make of it, but the result and the product is going to surprise you. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it for that alone.
Does that mean we might also see some interference? You know, if you have like that certain sort of situation. I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking. You know,
I would be surprised
Okay.
if Ellie and Brooklyn were not at ringside for Locura and Orion's match,
all right.
and I would be surprised if Locura and Orion were not at ringside for Ellie and Brooklyn's match.
Ooh,
Now, of course, that could depend on which match comes first and what damage the participants take,
Of course.
but they are usually attached at the hip, so I would be very surprised if there wasn't something there. And Locura is, well, we've talked about him a lot. I would not put it past him to put his hands on Ellie. But I would also not put it past Ellie to kick his teeth down his throat.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm good with I'm good with him getting his teeth kicked down his throat. He choked me out in that building too. I don't really seem to have a lot of good luck in that building in Houma.
Yeah, I was about to say that maybe. Are you sure you want to maybe watch that show from the back? Maybe don't.
Yeah, maybe I'll
maybe
just
don't
stay in
get
the
in the
office
ring.
or something.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as Lacura goes, I mean, I've seen him threaten a child live in person in the middle
Yeah.
of a ring, so
Yeah.
I've seen it happen.
Wow.
Yeah, not the
and
first time, won't
also-
be the last.
No, and also I'm still just blown away at you know, the dynamic between this match between Ellie and between Brooklyn, because when you look at how young Brooklyn is and when you look at when Ellie won that first championship, I mean, Brooklyn was 12 years old when Ellie won that title back in, I think it was 2018. So to imagine Brooklyn being a fan at any of these shows, and now years later seeing the dynamic between these two. First time ever match. It's pretty cool long term, you know, thing that's coming to fruition
Yeah.
here. So I agree with you. I think that's the match where you don't really know what's going to happen, but regardless of what happens, you know it's going to be good. It's
Yeah.
going to be a good result on the other side. Now let's talk about a match that should be good, but it's going to be a bit of a crazy one. I don't know much about
Yeah, and I
the
want to know
first
about
guy.
this, Casey, because I saw it on the sheet. What is console combat? What?
Yeah, let's talk about the console combat match. So we know Stan Sweetan, who has come out of his retirement, and he's making this run here. But going up against the Chainbreaker, Kerry, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but is it Kerry Grow? Is that how you say it?
I think so, but we all just call him Kerry Gross because he's a pretty pretty gross guy.
He's he looks like a very unique individual.
Yes, he has he doesn't smile a lot. He just seems to be a very cantankerous man. I don't know. I wish he was happier. His demeanor is just not the greatest. He's he ain't no ray of sunshine. But for the purposes of this, we'll call him the chain breaker, right? Because that's like what he likes to call himself, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
He feels that he has broken free of the chains that are holding him back. He feels like he is the new blood in the wrestling scene around here. And that is true. He is new. He's only a year or two in, so he's a newer guy. He is also very underhanded. I think he thinks he is better than he is because he's better at cheating than he is at wrestling. And, you know, it's easy for new guys to get led along the wrong path. We've talked about that a few times tonight. But he has run afoul of probably the most insane person that I have ever shared a locker room with. And this is a totally different kind of insane than Locura. Like I said, Locura is like a demon. Stan Sweetan once had so many concussions that he thought he was various superheroes. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Stan Sweetan's career, he has been Super Stan. He has been Bat Stan. He has been Cap Stan America. He has been Iron Stan. He was once in a Rumble where he was all of those and himself, 5 different entries. He's not a well man. So when he came to me with the idea of finally shutting up the youngster um, in console combat, I said, "Cool, what's that?" Uh, and I know this isn't the answer that you're looking for, but this is the truth. He laughed, a very deep, hearty belly laugh, and
As
then
he does.
he pat me on the shoulder, probably a little too hard, and said, "You'll see," and then just walked away.
Okay, so
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 from what I understand though, no disqualifications, no countouts, really no
yes,
real rules. You know,
are
yes,
they sitting there? They're going to put like NBA 2K up on screens and play each other in the ring. What are they doing here?
we don't know.
I I was asked to sanction a match that
Mhm.
was no disqualification, no count out, no time limit, no holds barred, anything goes, etc., etc. Right? You can only win by pinfall or submission in the middle of the ring. You know, the typical tropes of your average street fight, right? So I sanction this match, assuming it is a street fight. And then Sweetan got all excited talking about how console combat is on. And I was like, what is that? And then, you know, our production team produces the graphics, and the graphics show Chainbreaker, Stan Sweetan, console combat. What is that, Stan? And then Stan gives me the old pat, and he's like, "You'll see," and walks away. So I have no idea
All right,
what this match is or is going to happen in it. Uh, I don't know.
but this could be the
Um,
start of a new tradition.
it very well could be.
Could be.
Um, I I I don't have any other I don't have any other answers. I
Well,
wish I knew.
we'll definitely be watching it the next day on YouTube because I don't want to miss that. That's gonna be
Yeah.
that's gonna be um quite the spectacle. If I'll use
Yes.
that word.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can assure you that it is not just a name. There
Yeah.
is something up his sleeve. I
Yeah.
don't know what. He likes to rib us and surprise us. So it's not just called console combat for the sake of having a fun name. There is something involved. Couldn't tell you what it
God.
is, but I am also looking forward to being surprised as everyone else.
Somebody's gonna get thrown into a Mrs. Pac-Man machine or something. I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if he had an arcade machine there. I wouldn't be
I wouldn't be
surprised if he
either.
had. He might break a Sega Genesis over Chainbreaker's head. I have no idea. I don't know.
Bring your old used Sega Genesis to the match. We might need them.
Yep.
That is very and no joke. That is very possible. And I don't know what he might take an old Super Nintendo controller and break it, and then use all the spare parts like thumbtacks and slam a guy on it in the middle of the ring. I don't know. And I think
I've got my Nintendo 64 and all the old games right here. He can use those too. Just do a little.
yeah.
You know,
Look, if it's broken and it doesn't work, bring it. I'm
bring
sure
it.
he'll use it. The most exciting part is that I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's what I'm looking forward to in that one.
All right. Well, I'm really looking forward to this next match just because I think that you guys have also done a really good job of this. I'm giving you guys a lot of praise, but I just have a lot of respect for you guys because you guys have done a lot for Louisiana wrestling
Thank you very much.
when the pandemic gave professional wrestling every reason not to thrive. So, but that's this tag team match you guys got coming up. Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Is this for the tag titles?
It is not.
Okay, so no,
This
not a
is
title.
yes, it is non-title, but it is a tag team showcase.
All right.
I'm very interested in seeing the sort of every team has a different set of style. So I'm interested in seeing the style battle between these three teams, and I'd like to sort
Yeah.
of start reshaping the tag division. So I want to see what the champs can do with these opponents.
Okay. So we've got the champs, the Russell twins, going up against who we've talked about a lot in this episode, Pillar.
Uh-huh.
And then another team that we kind of mentioned a little bit early on, but two decorated members of the 225 roster, Killjoys, that being Corey Constantine, Wes Warren. Now, Wes Warren recently set the Rumble or the Super Gold record for eliminations, correct?
He did. He eliminated 10 individuals on his own,
Right.
and was in the final 2 as a result.
Right.
Yeah.
And Corey Constantine, former heavyweight champion for you guys.
And former Super Gold winner as well. Yes.
As well, yeah. So a lot of history, a lot of championships that have come and gone between the teams in this match.
Mhm.
But outside of the, we've already given the champs their praise. Killjoys, we know about them and their decorated history in 225.
Mhm.
Again, Corey Constantine and Wes Warren, two guys that I think maybe individually, respectfully, don't get enough respect and attention, I think, from a lot of people in terms of the 225 fandom. I think it's really easy to take both of those guys for advantage because of how consistently good they are night in and night out.
Yeah.
So I think while two guys that have really made a name for themselves in 225, still two guys that I think are really underrated in terms of how good they really are. But let's talk about the Pillar and the
Yeah.
drama that seems to be brewing between them. Now, Braxton and I, like I said, go really far back in terms of whenever he got into this business. I've seen a lot of iterations of Braxton. I've seen a lot of drama that Braxton somehow inevitably may get himself revolved around. And it seems to be making its way around here with the Pillar as well. They recently had, he and Alex had a moment outside of the building. And it seems they may be butting head in terms of who is in the group, who is not in the group, and where the group may be going. So outside of the obvious talent of the Russell Twins and the Killjoys, give me a little insight in terms of what may be happening with the Pillar.
Well, we touched a little bit on it earlier.
Mhm.
There was the Pillar and the strength that they had together was such it was such an almost instantaneous tidal wave. Braxton, he's going after the SEC title and he finally makes it, and he gets that big moment becoming Southeastern champion. Before he was able to do that, he had a couple of his best friends in Dale Springs and Alex Braddock win the tag titles. He has T Gaines, and Braxton and T Gaines have a relationship that is beyond wrestling, right? And she's winning the women's title, and there's gold here and success here, and it feels good. And Dale retires, leaves his half of the tag titles up. Jace Miles comes in, someone that Braxton had really taken a liking to in training, and someone who was a head and shoulders standout in training, ushers him in, inducts him into the Pillar. Then is it going to be okay? Well, does that mean that he's Dale Springs' replacement as tag team champion? But then Alex wasn't quite sure on that. Alex also wanted a team with Braxton. Braxton didn't want the tag titles with Alex because he wanted to continue going after the SEC title. So there was a lot of championship aspiration here that
Mm-hmm.
started to kind of get in the way of personal relationships. And then Jace wins our annual Mayor's Cup tournament. So he has the Mayor's Cup trophy, which is fantastic for Jace. But just maybe a month or two later, now Braxton loses the SEC title. A few months prior to that, Alex had lost the tag titles in that Battle Royal we talked about. So let's kind of see where it goes, right? Um, and I'm going to be honest with you here. I'll kind of give you a scoop, if you will. I'm not 100% convinced that I will keep this match as non-title.
Mm.
It may change night of. It may change my mind before then.
Mm.
But as of right now, I'm still keeping this as a non-title match, just because I really want to see if Braxton and Alex can work together the way that they think they can and should. I don't have any love lost for Constantine or Warren, but
Hmm.
as much as they hated working with other people, they have started to work very well together, which is unusual. So I'm interested in seeing how that translates. And then the Russell twins are literally twin brothers who are traveling the world and
Yeah.
are tag team champions. So each team has a completely different dichotomy.
Yeah.
And they also have different wrestling styles. So I want to
Totally.
see how all of that gels together. Yeah, like I said before, I'm interested in sort of reshaping the tag division around this. That's why I'm still a little on the fence about making it for the titles or not. because I'm really interested in seeing sort of where the chips fall
Yeah.
with this matchup. But I think regardless of what the result is, I think it's going to be a make or break situation for the pillar. I think that they really need to figure out where their priorities lie, and for them to stay together and to stay strong, they're going to need this win.
Yeah, hard to disagree. And again, especially knowing Braxton and knowing him for as long as I have, and seeing the history that he has had in his career, I think you're right. It definitely feels like a make or break match for the Pillars specifically. At least this iteration of it that has come to be.
Right.
All right, so you talked about a tag team showcase. Let's talk about a championship showcase.
Mm-hmm.
So a guy we talked about earlier, we have a lot of praise to, and another guy that we can agree there's a lot of respect for, or some respect for, but motives might be questioned. We have the SEC champion going up against the heavyweight champion here. We got Simon Phillips going up against Vlad. So this match, I don't know, man. There's a lot of layers that could get thrown in here, and I don't know how to hype it up any more than we've already hyped it up. So I'll let you take it over. But man, this feels like a match of the year contender before we've even seen it, right?
Yeah, our plan for this particular show all along was to do a champions showcase. I kind of mentioned earlier I didn't expect that it would be Simon Phillips in this position.
Yeah.
But yes, our heavyweight and our Southeastern champions, Vladimir Koloff and Simon Phillips, will be competing against one another in a non-title match, our Champions Showcase main event at Power Up. The heavyweight championship is always the title, right? But the Southeastern Championship, the SEC title, it's Baton Rouge, baby. That's Tigerland, right?
Yeah.
So that's the reference, and that title has always been that workhorse championship. And I don't think anybody would disagree with saying that Simon Phillips, especially in the last year of his career, has been a workhorse. And we've already talked about the domination of Vladimir Koloff with the heavyweight title. This is, and I hate to use an old trope, but this is the irresistible force, immovable object kind of situation, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I would be hard pressed to point out two individuals on the Pro Wrestling 225 roster who are more loathed by the fans than these two men. So I don't know what the fans are going to think of it. I don't know who they're going to decide to throw their weight behind. Although I do have a sneaking suspicion that it's going to be Vlad because of the snake oil he's been selling recently. But again, that's more of a personal opinion. I don't know. This is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, no.
It's not for anything, right?
Right.
The titles aren't on the line. There's no sort of ranking or anything like that. This is just something that we wanted to showcase. Our top two men's singles champions, one-on-one, head-to-head in a main event matchup. And I thought that it would be a fun contest. I didn't expect the participants to be these two men, but here they are. And I'm excited to see what they're able to create in the ring together.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, sometimes the best thing about pro wrestling.
Top to bottom.
You go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, top to bottom case. Like I said, this card has like all sorts of different types of excitement. It feels like,
Yeah.
Like you said, you've got that. Like I said, the first match we talked about with the luchadors and whatnot coming at you. You got the women's match. You got the tag team match. You got whatever console combat is, and then you got this thing that's not a title match, but it kind of feels like it's a weird like respect match, if nothing else. Like there's gonna be a lot of respect and a lot of
a lot of pride on the line.
Pride on the line. Who's talking after this? Like even though the titles aren't on the line, there's going to be a reputation on the line in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I agree with that. And these are two men who have their egos precede them, right? So somebody is going to get one bruised worse than the other. So it's going to be an interesting to see where the dust settles after this match. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where that lies. But yeah, to your point, Matt, this is something that we really pride ourselves on. We use the analogies like buffets and an ice cream parlor and all this, but we really do try to have all these different flavors. There is something for everybody at a Pro Wrestling 225 event. Every match caters to a different type of fandom, and it's all wrestling fandom. So it's this amalgamation of fantastic, whether it's this athleticism that's or the lucha libre and it's out of this world, or whether it's hardcore chair swinging, table smashing, or whether it's this consummate professional like submission based wrestling, or if it's just two big guys, big meaty men chopping meat. Shout out Big
Yeah,
E.
yeah,
I mean,
right.
we
Yeah,
have all of these different things, and we pride ourselves on that. And that's something that we really like to offer. We like to offer all of the different stuff. So that way, if you spend your hard earned money to buy a ticket to come to our show and sit in the seats, then you are going to leave there having at the very least, at least one match that you could point to and say, man, I really like that. Even if everything else wasn't your style, even if some of the, maybe it's not your bag, but you can at least say that there was one thing that we provided that you loved that you would come back for again.
yeah, and I think you guys have done a great job over the years of some compelling storytelling as well, with the talent that you guys have surrounded yourself with. Uh, I don't know that I've ever left a 225 event where like you said, there wasn't at least one match on the show where I was like, God, like, and you know, it's really nice to be able to understand a lot of uh, the intricacies of the business. So it's nice to be able to go up to these people after the fact and really show the respect and the admiration for what they do in the ring, because I tell you what, I took 3 bumps in my whole life and I knew it wasn't for me immediately. So I couldn't do what they do. And it's just, man, the guys that you and the ladies that you have surrounded yourself with, yeah, just some amazing talent. And I think one of the favorite things I actually have to give you credit for that I don't think a lot of small companies do is you guys are really good about the lineage of your company. So when it comes to, like, if I could point Matt to Pro Wrestling 225's page, and he could go to you guys' photo albums and find the lineage of every championship that you guys have, and in terms of like the discography, in terms of the video backlog that you guys have of past events, and the social media continuity that you guys have. I mean, you guys have a separate social media page for your booker. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's like, I think I want to give you guys a lot of credit and give you guys your flowers for that, because I don't think that in terms of pro wrestling, a lot of what we love about it is the nostalgia. And if you don't keep track of that stuff, there is no nostalgia to have. It's just memories that you can talk about. So I think it's a really nice and beautiful thing that you guys do in terms of respecting the past, and keeping it easy for people to gain access to that stuff
Right. No,
as
it's
they
great 'cause
come
if you
in.
haven't seen like a Vladimir Koloff match before, you know,
Yeah.
like you said, because you got the 225 YouTube channel, you can go find something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would.
and a lot of people who aren't involved or who are new right now may not know about the old title runs of Gil Gracie and the likes of Vordell Walker. You know, guys like that we've talked about a lot. And so and you talk about the current heavyweight champion, former tag team champion, and him in that tag team, they had some stellar matches out there. So yeah, to what Matt said, I agree.
Yeah, I would go so far as to say that storytelling is nothing without continuity.
Yeah.
So if whether you're a longtime viewer or first time viewer, whether you have been to every single 225 show over the last 9 years, uh, it's worth it to not only have like title history, right, but to know that every single story that you're experiencing, because that's what it is, we're storytellers, but you're experiencing the stories we tell and in a live environment, right? For every single story that you experience, you can trace it back all the way to the very beginning. You
Yeah.
can trace the not just the individuals, but their interactions. You can trace back to the first time they interacted, and we have Easter eggs in almost every story that we tell of relationships, of past nuance, things that will reward our current viewers if they've been longtime viewers. And again, it's just that it all boils down to that one single point of storytelling is nothing without continuity. So continuity is extremely important in the creative process as we continue to tell the stories we tell.
Absolutely. Well, look, March 8th in Houma, Louisiana, at the
Yep.
East Park Rec Center. You guys are gonna tear the house down, dude. It's gonna be awesome. Like I said, I can't wait to watch it. We've been tooling around a little bit with the idea of maybe doing some watch-alongs, and I don't know, Pro Wrestling 225 YouTube might be a great place to start. You know,
Yeah.
help get some more people exposed to the talent you guys have going through there. Um, Now, before we let you go, though, I do want to ask, outside of the 225 world, there is the big brother of it all, WWE up there, doing their stuff. I do have to
Mhm.
ask, are there who are you a big fan of today? I know a lot of guys who get involved at the indie level like you guys are. A lot of guys don't actually watch the current product a lot of the times, but I am curious to know a lot of the times who you're watching, who you like, who you're a big fan of. I like to pick the people's brains because I do also want to get Matt to tell you his favorite as well after you're done because it might surprise you.
It is so funny that you asked me this question.
Yeah.
The entire time that we've been talking, my phone has been blowing up in an unusual way.
Okay.
So I just had to take a peek at it. And my wife has informed me that my daughter has said that I need to know, that daddy needs to know that Uncle Ricky is on TV. And
Yes.
I scrolled through my phone, and by the time this airs, everybody will already know this.
Of course.
But I've been informed that my very good friend Ricky Starks has debuted for WWE NXT tonight.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So
That's awesome.
I am extremely happy for my kid's Uncle Ricky. Shout out Ricky if you watch this. I love you, buddy. And congratulations. So yeah, that's going to be my answer.
Yeah.
My answer is going to be a guy that is my age, who is from here, who we came up in the business almost together, even though he was in the Texas scene for more of his time. A guy who would sleep on my couch in between shows. I mean, a guy who I shared a lot of meals with, a guy who I
Yeah.
shared a lot of time at middle school gyms with. I am very happy right now to say, and almost emotional to say, that my favorite WWE superstar is Ricky Starks.
Man,
That's cool, man.
that's
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Even as somebody that's just a fan and doesn't know Ricky personally like you do, he's so easy to root for, man, and so talented in and when I say every, I mean every aspect of what the business entails. Like, he is a consummate professional, um, excels at everything he does, and I couldn't be happier for the guy. And I hope that championship gold. I know that championship gold is in his very immediate future. So, man, happy for you as his friend. Really happy for him to see that he's there. And a great answer. I didn't expect that, but yeah, debut tonight. We're recording this early, of course. Debut tonight. I did see that earlier, and so man, that makes me really happy for you guys. That's awesome. That's really awesome.
So cool.
Shout out, Ricky. I hope you do see this. If you do see this, it might be a lot harder to get you on the pod now, but maybe one day.
Yeah.
His rate just went up, brother. His rate just
Oh
went up.
yeah.
All right, so Matt, you got to let him know who's your favorite,
I mean,
because it might surprise you, but he's an all time great, I think.
I mean, like I said, well, my current favorite. You mean who's my current?
Yeah, your current
guy?
favorite. I think he's an all time great.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I dig Seth Rollins. I dig Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
I grew up on the Hulk Hogan Macho Man era. You know.
Well, yeah, of course.
I remember when Hulk left Macho Man alone because Queen Elizabeth got hurt, and and my 7-year-old brain or whatever couldn't comprehend what I was seeing.
I see it in his eyes.
You know,
You got lust in your eyes.
I mean, I believed every minute of it. You know what I mean? That was,
Yes.
I was totally into it. So yeah, I totally appreciate. Here's a question I got for you, Brett, real fast. So
Yeah.
do you look at other other places to get talent? Do you, like you got Ohio, like said, talent coming down? How do you get talent from outside to come in? Do you just hear about somebody from somebody else? Somebody like, here, check out this video, you know?
Yeah, this might come as a surprise, but I obsessively watch wrestling.
That's what I was wondering. Are
And
you just always just looking at stuff? Yeah.
yes. And I don't mean like, sitting in front of the TV and watching Raw on Netflix every week. I mean, like, I am watching wrestling.
Mhm.
I would not have social media if it wasn't for professional wrestling. I am all over every platform you can think of, watching every clip from every company you can think of. And I'm looking at the larger independents, but I'm also looking at some smaller stuff. Now, there's something to be said for production value and actual in ring talent, of course. But something that I've often been quoted as saying, and I still believe to this day, is that the Gulf Coast wrestling scene, all everywhere between Texas and Florida down here, has just as much quality pro wrestling from both an in-ring and an out-of-ring perspective than the West Coast or the East Coast does. You don't have to be in California or up in New York, brother, to have good quality pro wrestling. Like, there's quality pro wrestling everywhere. But if you're below the Mason-Dixon line, you get overlooked. And I don't think that we should be overlooked. I said not too long ago that Pro Wrestling 225 is named after the area code of Baton Rouge, the capital of Louisiana. Well, I want Pro Wrestling 225 to be the capital of Louisiana wrestling. And if that means looking outside the states that are in the Gulf Coast, if that means looking outside the country, I want to bring in brand new faces that not just for one-time gigs. Those are fine. Those are fun, sure. But a roster that we can actually build with talent that isn't just talent that's local. And I think being able to do that not only lends into those flavors that I was talking about earlier, but it also makes our product stand out as something that's different. If you could go 30, 45 minutes in either direction to go see the same guys in a different venue on the same card, how is that going to be any better for your dollar? Like, you're just seeing the same guys. If I want to go to a different wrestling show, if there's a different 3 letters or whatever on that marquee, then I want to see a totally different roster.
Yeah.
Like, there should be difference in the area, right? And I know we're far beyond the territory days, but we can create our own little territory-esque fiefdoms and build from there. And I think that's, especially in the last couple of years, post-COVID, is something that Pro Wrestling 225 has been really good at. And in my last year as general manager is something that I've prided myself on too. I want to keep that ball rolling. I want to keep bringing in new faces and seeing who resonates with the audiences that we have and keep bringing them back and keep trying someone new. I think that's important just for the vitality of a promotion. So yeah, I am obsessively watching clips from everywhere. And I'm texting Jordy, who's my boss. I'm texting the other guys on our creative team, our production team. I'm like, have you seen this guy? Have you seen this girl? Check out her match. Check out what these two dudes did. And do we have contact information for them? How can we find all of those conversations are happening constantly.
Now, I do want to ask, because I want to pick your wrestling brain for just a second, because Matt, a Seth Rollins fan, I often tell him about Seth Rollins prior to his WWE stint as Tyler Black, of course.
Yeah.
Man, I have to ask if you've seen this match, because again, Matt has to see this match if he has. I know he hasn't, but Tyler Black, Kenny Omega, Bryan Danielson, Ring of Honor. Have you seen that one, the triple threat? Oh,
yes.
Matt, when I tell you, I mean, the words that I could say wouldn't do it justice, but you're talking about, man, this is probably 2005, maybe.
Yeah.
And this is like young Seth Rollins, who is known as Tyler Black. This is Kenny Omega, who Matt doesn't know too much about Kenny Omega, but for probably a decade now, is considered one of the best, if not the best wrestlers in the world. And then Bryan Danielson. I mean, he's Bryan Danielson. He's one of the greatest of all time to do it. I recently, I don't want to say recently, I found that match maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, and recently went back and watched it. And it's just crazy seeing 20 years later where those guys are now and how great they were at that like primitive of a state in their career. You know what I'm saying? Like, that young and that good already. And all three guys who were doing it really before, I don't want to say before it was cool to do it outside of WWE, but in a post WCW era where WWE was, the pinnacle that it could
Mhm.
be, Ring of Honor was growing this groundswell of support, and those three guys, they were three of the guys that were really responsible for that. And going back and watching that match was just really great. And you talking about being a wrestling nerd, just I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Matt, I would also suggest if we're talking about really good triple threats, that Rollins Omega Danielson one is up there. And of course, I think it's probably the most famous one in the fandom as a whole, I would imagine. But the TNA Unbreakable triple threat between AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, and Samoa Joe
Oh,
is widely regarded as one of the best, if not the best, triple threat match of all time. If you haven't seen that one, that was from Unbreakable '05 on
yeah.
pay per view. I'm more than certain it's available 20 years later on YouTube
Yeah.
somewhere for free. So definitely go watch that if you haven't. Those are two really quality triple threats. Yeah.
Man, that TNA era was just, God, man,
Oh yeah.
so good. To think about the fact that Kurt Angle did his best work in the second half of his career for TNA,
Yeah.
some might say, um, is really crazy, and I think speaks volumes to how great they were then. And I really wish they're getting back to it. I think in a little bit, but
Yeah. Don't sleep on TNA, people.
yeah,
They're getting
don't
back.
sleep on them. They got some
Yeah.
talent there, and I mean, now with this merger, or I say merger, but this partnership with NXT, you're going to see a lot of really talented names fighting. Could you imagine if we see Obafemi and Moose, man? That's going to
Yeah.
be Obafemi Moose would be a brawl that I am here to see.
I am
So
clearly biased, but I would like to see TNA World Champion Ricky Starks now. That maybe that's a thing. Who knows?
Ricky Starks, Joe Hendry coming up. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
mad at it. Wouldn't be mad at it. All right, Brett, we really appreciate your time and you stopping by, and uh, you guys just keep excelling that future of pro wrestling in Louisiana, and just as somebody that's a fan of the business at the actual core is just really appreciative of that, and it's really fun to see. And you, as you know already, you're not going to be the last 225 guy to come through the show, so I think we'll be seeing a lot more 225 over the upcoming weeks here on the Tailgate Kings too.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. It was a blast. I really appreciate y'all. And I appreciate the kind words. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. Well, look, it's all meant, it's all legitimate, and I really do mean it. So, again, thanks for coming on. And look, if you guys haven't already, make sure you go check out all the Pro Wrestling 225 socials. Check them out on YouTube. Check them out on Facebook. I see all their stuff on TikTok too. So if you're on
Yep.
TikTok, go follow them on TikTok. They don't get enough likes there. Make sure you follow them everywhere. But yeah, again, last time, Britt, we really do appreciate it. And yeah, until next time, because we'll have you on again.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
All right, and we are out.